Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is in continuation of our book talk event that we have been doing for past few weeks. And today we are going to discuss about the Rainborn or its translation, Bengali translation, Brishti Jatok. We have with us the Iranian science fiction writer Zoha Kazemi and Yashodhara, our Bengali writers Yashodhara Raychaudhuri and Anushtup Sett. Let me introduce to you to the work of Zoha. So Zoha Kazemi is an Iranian writer and the first writer in Iran who has written professionally in speculative fiction, especially the genre of science fiction and fantasy. He explores fundamental concepts like love, immortality, death, religion in her soft sci-fi novel. She creates and depicts a strange and self-sufficient world with complex culture, economics, and political structure in her novel, where she puts to test many challenging ideas and thoughts about the nature of mankind, its social constructed beliefs and values and their effects. Rainborn in Kazemi's eighth novel, but her first book written in English. She has written and published in Persian before seven novels, a flash fiction collection, and a three-volume children's novel. She has won Nufi Award for the best speculative novel of the year in Iran two times in a row for her dystopian novel Death Industry and her post-apocalyptic novel Rainborn. So we present you Zoha Kazemi. Yashodhara Raychaudhuri uh, is a bureaucrat. She has served in different parts of India extensively. She is a noted poet and feminist author hailing from Calcutta, West Bengal. She was awarded the Krittibash Puraskar for poetry in 1998. Later, she ventured into sci-fi and speculative fiction through her books of short stories Onkiter Budbud, and she has translated Ray Bradbury's novel Martian Chronicles from English to Bengali. She has co-edited the first SF anthology in India solely by women writers. Her series of essays on women SF writers from all around the world has been published in a prominent Bengali newspaper. She also wrote a biographical novel on her late father, Dr. Dilip Kumar Rai Chaudhuri, who was a forerunner in Bengali science fiction. She also writes short stories, novels, and critical essays and feminist articles, publishing in leading newspaper and magazines from Bengal. Yashodhara also is a translator from original French and English language into Bengali. Yashodhara ma'am, thanks for being here with us for today.
Thank you.
And
Namaskar.
finally, Anushtup. Anushtup was born and raised in North Calcutta. After completing her postgraduate studies in Indian Statistical Institute, her career took her first to Pune, later in Mumbai. Anushtup writes as a hobby simply because she enjoys it. She has a deep interest in science fiction and fantasy, with several fantasy novels to her name and numerous science fiction stories published in various magazines. Additionally, she has translated 10 stories by Elizabeth Bear and a novel by Zoha Kazemi. One of her science fiction stories has also been translated into English and published in Sahitya Academy Journal. She received the third year Bishoy Science Fiction Award in Bengali. So, Anushtup, welcome you to our show. Hope
Thank you
all
for
of
the
us
opportunity.
will have a nice time and will have a very productive discussion. Uh, so, for the beginning, I'll just start with Zoha, and I want to ask you about what prompted you to write science fiction or speculative fiction as a woman writer in Iran.
Okay.
So,
Hello to everyone who's watching. It's first of all, I want to thank you for the translation and publication of the book. Thanks, Anushtup. You've done an incredible job. I'm so happy for this opportunity, and it's so great to be able to talk to everyone. I mean, it's just you're also very incredible people. It's so wonderful being here. Thank you for this. event. Thank you for this opportunity. Um, yeah. Well, science fiction it has always been my passion since I was small. I didn't originally start writing science fiction in Iran. My first like four books were mainly realistic fiction. You could say feministic fiction, but I'm not really sure because feminism becomes a very broad topic in when you go to Iran. Like everything people like women do becomes an activist form of feminism in a way. So I can't really say whether it's I'm dealing with feminist ideas or not, but it's they're realistic. They're about women. They're about women's lives in Iran. So, in that sense, it could be feminist. But my fourth novel, Year of the Tree, it does actually have some magic realism aspects and themes. So that's when I decided that I have to, let go of the fear and try to see what Persian science fiction would be like. It doesn't have any progresses before. We only had like very scattered attempts at writing science fiction. Like we had great writers like Sadegh Hidayat writing some short stories in science fiction, but not it was not it's still it is not a common genre to write in Persian literature. So it was a great risk. It was a leap of faith for me, and I thought I should give it a go. I started writing short stories first, a few short stories, and then my ideas were bigger than just that I could fit into a short story. So I turned those into novels. One of them was funded, was acknowledged in a Nufa award later on, and then I continued. I sort of felt like I have found my home, and this is what I want to do. This is what I want to write. Science fiction does give you a lot of limitless imagination. You can create your own world. You can say whatever you want to say, and no one would be offended. No one would confront you about it because you can say it's all imaginative, and then you can bring in whatever you want to say, and it does escape censorship, which we do have very powerfully in Iran. So when you're writing science fiction, you can kind of cross many of the red lines that are normally there, and you can't really do anything about them in realistic fiction. So this was mainly the reason I shifted to science fiction, and I found it to be my home, and I'm still there, and I'm still hoping to write more if I ever can find the time these days.
Okay, that's very insightful. So this is also in a kind of your journey for to the science fiction from other genre mainstream fictions. So, like, if I ask you that for how many years you are writing now
How many years? I think
as a writer? Yeah.
nearly 15 years now.
Okay. That's
More
that's
than 15 years. Since I first published, it would be 15 years. So.
okay. Okay. So, how is this science fiction is perceived in Persia right now? Like, there is a big audience for science fictions, or what do you think? Or there is a still long way to go?
Oh yeah, there's still a long, long way to go. We're still at the very beginning stages of genre fiction. In general, science fiction is very limited. Very limited writers actually writing science fiction. Fantasy and horror are mostly more like welcome. But yeah, it's very it's just like a baby. Still needs a lot of nourishing, and well, we do read a lot of science fiction translated from English mostly, like from Western authors. Unfortunately, not too many from Asian authors, which I think we should really be reading more from, from Chinese, from Indian writers, from Arab writers. but mostly we're reading from, translated from American and European writers. And the translations are selling very well in Iran. I mean, there's a big um, fan base for science fiction for translation, but not for like, you know, Iranian fiction. We're still trying to prove ourselves as worthy of being read. Like, first of all, that there's this challenge of saying that, well, what we're writing is not necessarily for young adults, because most people think that
Yes.
science fiction is for young adults, for teenagers, and well, science fiction can be very like suitable for adult audiences. And another common conception that we're fighting is that science fiction is not necessarily just, not literary, it's not necessarily commercial fiction. So it can have like literary worth, it can be it can have deep themes and important aspects to it. So um, we're still fighting in those fronts, and we are inviting more, younger writers to join in and write their own kind of fiction. But the country is not in a very good state right now, especially in terms of financial crisis that we have, like devaluation of our currency every day. So all these things affect the economy, affect the publishing economy very badly. And I can see why, like, many publishers are trying to be more conservative in terms of writing fiction from, award-winning, like, globally award winners, like, important writers that everyone knows, famous writers. It's always, publishing from J.K. Rowling's will always pay off, but publishing from an Iranian writer may not, or, someone who they do not know, they cannot really promote from non-Western countries. That's a big problem for the publishers as of now. But I think it would get better at some point.
Yes. Yeah, I think that Anushtup and Yashodhara ma'am will also agree that we also have the kind of same situation over in India and Bengal also. Like people still need to know that science fiction is not a like childish genre. Uh, there can be a lot of things that can be expressed and done and said through child science fiction, which is not cannot be done through any other genre. So situation is kind of same, and also the like financial situation and book selling, everything uh,
Yeah.
is kind of very similar. We have already seen before that most of the non-English speaking countries, they have that similar situation for science fiction and fantasies. Okay.
I was going to say that only, and I just want to add here that we have this problem as well. Like science fiction is not the real literature, good literature, and that should not be the first in the category when you are talking about literature. All these problems are there.
Yeah.
And there's
uh,
also the problem of language. Well, you can more easily find people who can base one of the languages on English, and then have be bilingual in sense of English with another language. But it's quite difficult to find someone who knows like Persian and Bengali, or who knows like
right.
Persian and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that
saying
is right.
Italian or like French. And so there's always like the problem of mediation. So we need to get the books published into English, so we'll have a common ground, and then we could have them translated into other languages, which is not an ideal way of doing this. A lot of things
Mm-hmm.
might get lost, not in the first translation, but might get lost like if you do it like over and over. It would be
Yes.
much better if we could like translate ideally from the base language
Yeah.
um, to the lost language. So, but I guess we'll have to see how we can how we can reach this. And anyways, it's at least we can do this. And this is one way of doing it, like going through a mediatory language, but it limits our choices in terms of picking which books to translate and which ones to
Right.
um, yeah.
Yeah, but for now, is this is the way. at least we can achieve something going through the English language. Even in India, there is another big problem we are facing, right? Because India is a very many. India has many different language for each state.
Yeah, we are
So
also
yeah,
multilingual. So we have
yes.
this problem among regional literature too. The same
So
similar.
whenever we are producing science fiction in Bengali, we cannot let other states to read it, because like some state is reading it in Hindi, someone is reading it in Tamil, someone is reading it in Assamese. So every state has their different language, and they do not really communicate within each other or translate language from language. They're mostly they all have their own sufficient like created language and their literature in that language. So that's a big problem for us in India also. uh, I'll ask Joshadhara ma'am to continue that this discussion.
Yeah. Uh, Thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to Zoha. Because though not yet published, I've tried to translate some of her stories. So I think we can now start talking about the science symbols which Zoha puts in her writing. Maybe Anushtup, you can start about Rainborn, and then I can also ask about the other elements in her stories, because I found that I read just after this Rainborn was translated, Vrishti Jatok, I read it at one go within 2 to 3 days. So it was unputdownable for me. And I found that water was a very important part of that story. The concept of water and being on water, being underwater, uh, and the geography you have built is an imaginary world. So, could you explain the world building behind it and why water was so important for you as a construct in that novel?
I guess I use a water world to do the most estrangement as possible because, as you know, Iran is not a very, we have a lot of water scarcity. We could always also say that we have like water poverty in some places. Water is like a dream. It's like the ultimate, most beautiful thing. If you want to go outside and visit somewhere very nice, or if you're going on holiday, we always tend to pick somewhere that's close by the sea or has like a view of a lake or river or something. Water is so sacred in that sense for our
Yeah,
people. We love the water. It's something that comes within our dreams or imaginations in that way. But I also needed a word because Rainborn is mostly about social constructs like religious constructs through social constructions of religion, something about that. And I needed a timeline that was and that I didn't have to I didn't want to talk about existing religions. I didn't want to talk about specific religions or residue religions, anything. I didn't want to have any confrontations or any similarities with what we already have. I wanted to examine some ideas around religion and mysticism in the book. So I decided to go for a timeline that is so far ahead, and then try to build up the religion in the book. I couldn't go back in time, but I needed the time to be similar to something that we had in the past. So I went to the future where everything was destroyed. I read some I did read not some. I read a lot of articles about global warming and what could happen. A lot of scary things are going to happen the way we're treating our environment nowadays. But that was not my original aim for writing the book. I used that um, as the novum for my book, create this strange world. Um, and yeah, water comes from there, like water, fire, these like elements, these natural elements are
yes.
somehow considered sacred in the collective minds of people living I think in the Middle East, in Asia, in the human
Yeah.
species, these are fundamental elements that we think are purifying and can be. And water in Islam also has a purifying effect. So in Islam, we use water when people wash their face and hands before prayer. We do have a lot of cleaning with water, like everything that
Right.
needs to be cleansed, it has to be cleansed through water. So Zoroastrian belief, fire, it becomes the sacred cleansing element, but in Islam it turns into water. So there's the cleansing effect. I wanted the world to be cleansed again, and then see what happens if you cleanse the whole world. And then I think similar things happen in the book as they're happening right now.
Wow, that was a
Yeah.
great answer, and it touches so many things. The layers of cultures and
Right.
religion, because we also have the same in Hindu religion, also the same things are there with water. We consider it as a purifier, and also we have the craving for something that is near water, blue and calm and cool. Like, I think I get your point. And you really, somebody wrote, I think just now, that the novel has an epic proportion. It has an epic uh, quality to it. So I think, Anushtup, you can now take over from here, because you have done the translation, you know the characters so well.
That's true. And as I said, like the story, the characters, they come as so lively in the whole storytelling that while translating, I was totally into it, and it was almost like I'm living that life with them, with Tyrad and Dahlia and all that. It felt like so present around me. Now, coming to the point, like I had few questions on Rainborn, but that is not exactly on science aspect of that, because although science aspect is very important and very much present in that novel, there are so many other layers that was so fascinating. That, like you said, the religious, the political, the way we treat the environment and how the environment behaves on based on that. Uh, so it was like okay. Let me come to my question directly. First of all, what I found very interesting is that you have created a layer in that, not layer, I'll say like a social layer rather, in the story, something like Hiller made Lily and others who does the job of a maid, but at the same time they have the knowledge and capability to heal people. They have good knowledge of medicines and other things, and yet they have to live their daily life as a normal maid. That felt very, something we are not commonly see or expect, kind of, because doctors or all sort of medicinal people are regarded with a high estimate in most of the places that we see. So I was interested to know like how this thought came to you, how putting someone of that knowledge and that capability will also be treated like that.
So, like healing is also part of the practical, like cultural medicine that's been around for many years. I'm sure you've had similar healers back in India. We've had instances of healers throughout the time. I know that some other countries also have them. Um, I think when the whole world drowns and everything is just, there's a rebirth to this. Like water also symbolizes rebirth in a way. So the whole earth drowns and then is reborn again. That's where the name Rainborn comes from. Actually, it's like the rebirth of civilization. I couldn't, showcase the whole civilization, but I tried to do it like in one region that I thought about. And well, this kind of knowledge is, I think, it's some sort of collective knowledge that comes through, and people start to learn like through experience that if you use this kind of a herb, you can get these healing effects. If you do this, you can, so it comes from practice and through experience and, knowledge that is passed down from a previous person. So it's a very experiential
Yes.
knowledge. It's not like textbook. Um, I I think that's the answer. I mean, medicine is wiped out. It's like many years from the drowning, from the big fog, whatever that was. So there are no traces of the medicine we have right now. I think that's one of the things we're gonna lose if something like this kind of environmental catastrophes happen. You can't have easy access to medicine or manufacturing of medicine anymore. Pharmaceuticals will be shut down. You're going to lose a lot of things, and this will be one of the luxuries that we have in modern times that we're going to lose probably. Did I answer your question? Is that what you wanted to know?
That's very informative. Yes, that's it. And what also I had in mind is that, like with this knowledge or this capability, I would expect that those person who can do this healing activity should be treated better or should be put in a higher end or something like that. But that didn't happen. So, do you say like, I mean, for women in future also, kind of taken for granted will keep continuing and all?
Yeah. That was one of my intentions.
Okay.
One of the things that happens is the book is a rise of a new religion. And as you know, there are two contrasting forces in the novel. One of them is this social religion and culture thing that is made up by the human race, and the other is the nature. As you can see, it symbolizes itself with evolution, and you can see how the women in the book somehow are more at peace with the environment. They're at peace with the nature. They're okay if their children are like half dolphins, or they are they're adapting much better, more naturally to the environment. Their bodies are adapting faster, but there is a resistance in the masculine world. There's a resistance in the patriarchal way of the human species, and yes, you can see this in the characters. The world is not it's actually it's one of those moments that is turning into a matriarchal world. Is trying to understand women again and try to give in to nature and try to be at peace with it, but it's not there yet. So I think if it's maybe I'm very pessimistic, but I'm thinking that even if we are reborn again out of water, if we destroy our civilization, we go back to it. Even if we have good founders like the founders of this religion at the beginning, they were not that biased as they are now at this time of the story.
Right.
Eventually,
Yes.
eventually, power and money and economy and all of these things that we create will take us to become patriarchal again. It makes us become, um, distant from nature, making the same mistakes over and over again. So
Okay. Yes.
my
Yes.
pessimism. Yeah.
Exactly, like the way the story unfolds, we see that the lie, the corruption, the greed, everything comes back just as we know as of today, also, right? So you are foreseeing that even if we are getting a chance to reborn and build it everything from scratch in a proper manner and all that, and actually people like Parsara and other try, there are other forces which comes into play. They get the power. There is power play, there is greed, there is unnecessary violence, and all sorts of negative things that come back again in the like, I don't know, fulfilling the cycle, and it goes on even till the end. It goes on, so we do not know whether ultimately what good things are being tried on, whether they will stay or not. That's exactly how I felt also, like while reading it and translating it. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry that it has this kind of pessimistic view in it. It may be this kind of, hopeless feeling, like this kind of that it's not a very happy
I
ending.
won't I won't call it a pessimistic, Joe. I won't call it pessimistic because it's more like a warning, like if
Yes,
it
yes.
clearly segregates uh, what is good and what is bad, and tells us that don't keep on repeating this, don't keep on going to that side.
Yeah.
So I won't call it
Also,
pessimistic.
yeah, not pessimistic maybe, but I have seen, Zoha, many of your short stories are also very sad stories.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
very, very sad endings, and your characters are very lively because they fall in love, and very passionate love is there in many of your stories. I think in our country, when we think of science fiction or speculative fiction, we don't recognize the fact that love is one of the drivers of the society, and love is very organic. So I think we write more sanitized or maybe more cold stories. Your stories are very alive with lot of love stories, but still they are very sad stories. For example, Time Rider is also a sad story. Isolated is also very sad, and I really almost like on the verge of crying when I read the story Breathing.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes the short stories you write, they have the metaphor, because I remember reading from Ursula Le Guin that she was saying the future in science fiction is actually a metaphor. So but your futures are very near futures in your short stories. In Rainborn, it's a very distant and it's an epic proportion where everything is underwater. But in your short story Breathing, people are carrying small oxygen canisters on their body because otherwise they cannot breathe. So I think we just went over the phase of COVID pandemic and corona pandemic, and really related to Isolated and Breathing, because it seemed that it's very near us, the reality you are showing. It's a future setting, but it can really happen. It felt like that, and it gives you a feeling of suffocation because you cannot breathe without the oxygen canister, and if poor people cannot buy oxygen canisters, they will die. So all this is very realistic. So it's actually a metaphor and actually set in future, but the stories really ring a bell. And as Anushtup was saying, that they may not be, you cannot say it's hopeless or it's pessimistic, but that kind of uncomfortable zone where you take your readers, that's very important. That's a sign mark of a great writer, I would say, because you really can take us to that uncomfortable zone where one really feels suffocation, even in Isolated, when they're meeting through the glass corridors and they cannot meet. Even boys and girls cannot meet because they may die. So these are all very, very strong visuals, very strong metaphors. So I really appreciate, and I really want to know how you take a different concept for each of your story. You really work very hard taking a new idea and then transforming it into a love story, realistic story. Like how? What's your process?
First of all, I want to thank you, Yashodhara. I really appreciate your reading. You're so kind to me and the stories. I really appreciate it. I mean, I wish. I mean, I really love the way you talk about the stories. You get my intentions, although the author's intentions are not doesn't matter. I mean, like every reader can have their own understanding of the book, but you directly connect to what I wanted to convey in the stories. I wrote those short stories mostly during COVID time, and yes, you're right. A lot of the suffocation. I was actually gonna name the book "Suffocation" because most of the stories are about suffocation in different ways. In annual breathing, there's the oxygen masks. There's another short story that happens on a spaceship that's also suffocation. There's blue dust. It happens on Mars, and the woman goes out and suffocates without oxygen. So most of the stories end with a sort of suffocation. So yeah, and yeah, it is a metaphor of the time. They were written in a time where I felt very it was a sad time. It was a very anxious time. Many people around me were sick, and on top of that, we had like the pollution, the air pollution in Tehran. I'm sure you have similar
Yeah.
air pollution in India. I've seen some pictures of Delhi and some other cities, and that came, all the like geopolitical situation, all those worries, all those feelings of being trapped in a place that you can't really see so much too far into the future. All you can think about is how to transform your reality, your reality of now into something that can be read, a bit differently, and create that kind of effect. And of course, love is one of the most important. I think if there's anything that could save us, it's love. It's love. If there is a positive, if there is any kind of positive force in the universe that could somehow help save us from destroying ourselves, it would be love. And I try to bring it into my stories as much as possible. It's not a common thing to bring love in this sense in science fiction. I know that because I'm studying science fiction now in the University of Washington, and most of the books that we're reading, there's no mention of love or
Yes.
romantic
Yes.
relationship. There's a lot of like productive dystopias and stuff like that, but love in the sense, I would like to stay in the Asian sense of love, like, because it's like there's a sort of sensory feeling. It's very platonic, and at the same time it's very embodied. So this kind of love, it's been here like since the beginning of civilization. It's been among humans, and I think it's the only thing that could maybe someday save us from ourselves. And I would like to hold on to it as much as I can.
Wonderful, wonderfully
That's
said.
wonderful. And I would
Fantastic.
just like to say another thing before giving it to Anushtup, that your love stories remind me. I don't know if I am putting too much of my bias into your writing, but your love stories and your story buildings remind me of the 101 Arabian Nights stories, which actually were written in Persian. So I had a feeling that the storytelling tradition is also there in Iran still. For example, you talked about the healers. Healing traditions are also very old traditions. Similarly, storytelling is a very old profession, and
Yeah.
this kind of winding ways into so many love stories and angst, anxiety, everything together, weaving a story. I found it very organic and very Eastern, I would say, very Oriental that way, because we don't generally get that feeling when we read. Margaret Atwood is one of my most favorite, but that is a different thing, and this is a different feeling. So I thought it has something to do with the culture, where storytelling is very common and it's very organic. Somehow I felt that.
It has always been my dream to be able to, bring some kind of taste, like, I don't want to call it Oriental because we can't call ourselves Oriental in that sense, but some kind of Middle Eastern or Asian taste of our own. Yeah, 1001 Night. It's one of my favorite books. I've read it before. I just love that book, and I love it because it comes from different cultures that are adding to it, adding layers and tastes and scents and different, but it's very alive. It's very colorful.
Yes.
It's very, yeah, it's very nice. So if we can bring some of that effect into our storytelling, I think I've done what I hoped I would do. But I'm not sure if I actually have, because it's very difficult to say. I would like, I don't want to write like, um, and it's not really nice to say, but I want my short stories to bring into readers a sort of like Persian culture or the Middle Eastern Asian culture. I want that to be evident in the short stories. And it's really hard to do this because you're estranging the whole world and everything is different. So you can't really place it in the localities that we have, and it's hard to bring different like spices. You have to just add a little spice here, a little spice there, to make it feel like vibrant as the East. So yeah, I would like to know more about like Indian stories, also Indian science fiction. Do they have this kind of quality? Like, do they have this kind of Eastern taste to them? Unfortunately, I haven't read much Indian science fiction. It's something I really would like to do. But if you can explain to me about that, it would be really nice to know.
Anushtup, can you do the some sort of introduction?
I
We are writing, or you are writing the original writings.
Yeah, I think we also have a essence of India, or in particular, since we write in Bengal, essence of Bengal built in some of our stories. Although I myself prefer to put it in different regions, and I actually write with characters all over the world. Sometimes my stories are placed in Kolkata, the city I stay. Sometimes in Mumbai, sometimes in Tokyo, maybe something like that. So yeah, because that is because I mean, uh, first of all, I believe that human beings are more or less same in the all over the world. Like the basic feelings and triggers, everything remains the same with those kind of characters that I want to build. But in many of our writings, I think we have the essence of India or feelings of the locality. Like when I write a story about in Mumbai, obviously the culture of Mumbai, food habits, and typical places, typical way of passing the time, everything comes into picture in a very subtle way. But obviously, that whole atmosphere, I try to build up on that. That's true. Uh, Yashodhara, if you want to add to that
Uh,
from some of your story aspects and all.
we were editing one anthology of women writers of sci-fi, which is a very uncommon thing for women to write. First of all, generally our big writers, they generally wrote about socio-economic, uh, socio-political issues, and they never wrote fantasies. So during the 1960s onwards, there was a movement sort of about the speculative fiction, and now Kalpa Mishra is working on those periods and doing a lot of work on that, reprinting and discussing. But yeah, it has to have the local flavor. I think it's very important that we have the local flavor. Otherwise, everybody would read the same. We would love to have a Chinese author bring out something which I don't know about China, or an Iranian
Hmm.
author bring out those. By the way, I would like to just inform you that Kolkata is a hub of good cinema and parallel cinema. We really swear by Iranian filmmakers. And I also find Iranian filmmakers' films very human, very touching, and somewhere it touches a chord which Western films don't. So there also I can make a comparison that the cultural element is has to be there. Otherwise, you won't be able to touch it. It doesn't become very alive. isn't it? If you don't have that atmosphere which is your own. So I think in our literature also we have a lot of atmospheric novels, especially Sumit Bardhan's Artha Trishna has a lot of atmospheric and cultural inputs. That has been translated into English, isn't it, Dip?
Yes, yes,
Avarice. So maybe
yes,
Zoha could
awareness.
have a look at that.
Yeah.
That has an old Calcutta feel. It's a nostalgia and it's a steampunk built on that Kolkata nostalgia. I really liked it for that element.
I hope the anthology would be available in English so we can read it.
We were planning to
Yes.
have a translation. Yeah, it should
Actually, we are planning to have a translation, but you can understand that for English translation, we have to approach some. Most of the time, we have to approach some pan India publisher, because we also publish in translation and publish in English books, but our reach is quite regional since we are a regional publisher. So even if I publish a book in English, it will still be bounded by that region mostly.
Yeah.
So to get the book in English and to send it out to pan India level, at least I need to have a English publisher. But this is very difficult to like convince them that science fiction has a market and they should also publish science fiction books. So I know that's a completely different different conversation, but I guess that will be also true for in your country also.
Yes, it is. It is true. I mean, it's one problem is the translation. The other one is, well, if you translate it into English, how can you distribute it? How can you get it to
Right.
customers? And yeah, it's very complicated. I really hope that we can find a solution to this. Um, yeah, I was hoping that when I come here, like to the US, I came here for my studies. Maybe when I finish my studies here, I can think about some ways to see um, how can this be done, like through an international way. How can we eliminate this kind of long distance whatever that is. I'm thinking about it, but it's just life becomes so complicated at times. You just want to get along, and all your plans have to be on hold for some time to see what's going to happen. But I'm hopeful. I mean, with the AI developing in this way, there are various ways that maybe we will be able to read like in Bengali and understand it in another language. Maybe some kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
yeah, I try to
yeah,
think about it more speculatively in that sense. So there might be new technologies developing, there might be new ventures opening up, and see how this could bring us all to closer together in the future.
right, right, definitely, definitely. Okay, we have a few questions, and Debraj Maulik has asked a question. So it's for all three of you. Could you recommend your favorite SF works? So Joha, starting with you.
Um, from my own works or from other writers?
Let's go both way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think um, unfortunately, my favorite works are not translated into English yet. One of them is the Juliet Syndrome, which is my bestseller in Iran. And I also have another book. It's called Death Industry. That one is, but I like that book. I think that's my best book. But these are not yet translated. And by other authors, I'm a really Arthur C. Clarke fan. So in the sense, like all these books are my favorites. Rendezvous with Rama is my favorite. Childhood's End is one of my favorites. I also like Ray Bradbury. I like Philip K. Dick's, especially Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is one of
Yeah.
my favorites. I like Octavia Butler's Blood Child. That's one of my favorite short stories. Yeah, I like a lot of science fiction.
Yeah. I just want to add that we are translating right now complete short stories of Arthur C. Clarke. And as you just said, childhood Z. Right now, actually, I'm translating Guardian and Angel, which is the precursor of childhood's end. I am translating into Bengali that story right now, so it's quite entertaining. Also, we have translated Philip K. Dick and Ray Bradbury from English to Bengali and published it. So we are doing lots of translation from classic and contemporary Western science fiction. But um, the problem is, for us at least, we want to see this happen in the both ways. I'm trying this for past few years so that I can find some like English translators or English publishers who wants to will be interested and wants to translate from Bengali science fiction and publish into English, because I think that we like Eastern science fiction community, we have some unique advantage and unique uh, properties in our science fiction which is missing in the Western counterpart. And there will be, like, China has already proved that there is a huge market for science fiction and to export their science fiction, and they are like we have all see that it's a multi-billion dollar industry on their country.
You're
uh,
talking about free body problem. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
Not
know.
only everybody
I
problem, like,
completely
yeah,
agree with you. And I think if they give us a chance, I mean,
yeah,
I would love to read more Eastern science fiction, definitely.
right.
And I'm sure that not only we don't lack anything, that we have many different flavors and colors and things that we can add to this genre. And it's we have a different perception. This different perception adds to the estrangement, the cognitive estrangement that everyone looks for in science fiction. And I think we have a really good collection of books available in most of the Eastern countries. We just need to find a way to get the message through. I've been trying my best. I know that you have also. Maybe one day we'll get through. It's science fiction is has been dominated by Western culture for so long now, and we need to getting through the cracks, as in whatever way we can, but it's very difficult. We get there one day.
Definitely. Yashodhara ma'am, I would like to ask you about your favorite SF works.
Uh, as already some of the names were already said, Ray Bradbury was one of the favorites. And when I was a young, like around 15, 16 years of age, then there was a magazine called Fantastic, which used to come. And that was uh, that was being edited by the same guy, Adrish Bardhan, who started up this entire sci-fi thing in
In
India,
Bengal,
in
yeah,
Bengal.
and India
So
also,
in
yeah.
60s and in 80s, he was bringing out Fantastic magazine, and I read The Welt, that story of Ray Bradbury, and I was just stunned. I remember I was stunned. And later on, I have been reading speculative fiction. As I said, Margaret Atwood, Handmaid's Tale, I find it became very, very popular because of certain things happening around the US around the late last 10 years. And it became almost like a prodigy sort of thing, prodigal thing. And I really find that kind of fiction very fascinating. And I find that hard science fiction and going to another planet through a spaceship and all those things are not required to make speculative fiction. Like that was the pulp fiction generation of the 50s, 40s of the US. And now there are so many different kinds of speculative fiction. So I really look for something new and some treatment, some world building which will really tantalize me and attract me. That's it.
Anushtup, do you want to add anything for
Yeah,
you?
I'll just quickly give few. Uh, Clark and Asimov had been my favorite all the time. And in Bengali, Premendra Mitro, I found really fascinating. And since Yashodhara already mentioned this and I had it handy, I just took it out. This is a fantastic book that we used to get while I was young and all. This is from my childhood only. And it contained a number of Bengali science fictions along with a number of translations. And they all were such a high standard and good quality that at that time, although I was not very particularly aware of science fiction, or it was not even my favorite genre at that age, I still loved the stories, and till that I can remember many of them, that okay, I have read it earlier in this book and all that. So that's the power of science fiction. It stays with you even though you don't particularly identify it as a science fiction or some particular genre or something like that. That's a good story.
So the
Elizabeth Bear, sorry.
uh, you just finished, then I'll say something.
Yeah, Elizabeth Bear, whatever stories I have read, I found really fascinating the way she thinks, the way she even brings out a totally different concept, and then suddenly it becomes aligned with in a completely different aspect of your life, something like that. I found that really fascinating, and I guess that's it for the time being. I can't remember anything at this moment.
I just forgot to add something. Elizabeth Bear translation by Anushtup also I read. That book was fascinating, and I have done small fiction translations for different anthologies. So I translated Lauren books. She's a South African writer. She had a story called Slipping, and that was wonderful. And that was about, she centered the story about changing people's body through some sort of medical intervention and then making a new kind of human beings. So that was fascinating. And she said the story with a South African girl who has come for a competition in Karachi, Pakistan. So it was very atmospheric again and very different from Western. And I would just like to mention here that my father, who died at the age of 37 years, he wrote a novel which was talking about nuclear reactors in the deserts of Rajasthan, the western India. So it was a very atmospheric novel. It was based on hard science because he was a scientist himself, but he wrote it in a way, it became a very atmospheric novel, and it was a thriller. So
It
it's a
was
very
a very lucid one, very fantastic one. Sorry to cut you,
very
Didi, but
good.
I read it and I loved it.
No,
Loved the
I'm a
novel the
fan of
way.
that. Yeah, I'm a fan of that because I read it. I didn't see my father with my own eyes. He died very young. I was just born when he went away. But that story is a typical Bengali science fiction which we have. It has many of the splendors of Bengali science fiction, that it is a very lucid, very humorous way of telling the story, and it's a thriller. It's a gripping thriller, but based on science. So I just
Yes.
wanted to give him a tribute because he is one of the first science fictions I read. So all those books were at my home.
Uh, when we have already just said about the translation of African science fiction, so there is a question. I'm sending it on the screen. So Purba Boshak asked that on this note, how the panelists think of Afrofuturism or African futurism and how it has inspired SF in the global south. So Joha, do you want to answer this?
Afrofuturism and how it has inspired science fiction in the global south. I can only talk about Iranian science fiction, and I think there is none. We have not been translating Afrofuturism. Um, one. One reason is that they have a lot of sexual scenes. Most of them, like Octavia Butler's books, like Dawn has a very, as you know, it does have some very sexual scenes. Or Delaney, I don't know if that's Afrofuturism or not, but Black science fiction, if that's the question, we haven't been able to translate any of those. Um, Probably not many people in Iran even know them, and there hasn't been that much of a connection. I know some Egyptian, if Africa and Egypt, we can put like Egypt in Africa. I don't
Yeah.
know. Okay, we have to put them in Middle East. The borders seem very confusing at sometimes. There have been some works of some Egyptian works, but not influential in the sense we have been influenced mostly by Western science fiction in finding the ways of writing science fiction, genre wise in that sense. But thematically, we've been borrowing from our own cultural mysticism, from our cultural like religion and things that we know of, our own storytelling techniques, and we were mostly influenced by our own kind of roots and combined with Western genre specifics. So no, I'm sorry, I don't see any influences in that sense.
Uh, we have in Bengali recently, we have translated some works of current Afrofuturism. You guys know, I guess, that there are two volumes, and me, Anushtup, and Yashodhara ma'am was also one of the translators in that Afrofuturism. Uh, yeah, most of those writings can be deemed as Afrofuturism. It was published from Joydhak, and it was a wonderful effort. But if you want to ask that if there is any inspiration from Afrofuturism in Bengali or in Indian science fiction, my answer will be also same, that no, I don't think we have inspired from Afrofuturism. I mean, maybe how Afrofuturism is projected and is a popularity, gaining popularity in Western science fiction world, that can be a good starting point for projecting our Indian or uh, global South science fictions. But other than that, the what I feel after translating those science fiction from Africa, or those black science fiction, they are essentially very different from what we write,
Yes,
because their
exactly.
society, their religion, their structure, their struggle, everything is very, very different from us. And
Hmm.
it will be quite unnatural to maybe that's a strong word, but still to getting inspired from that kind of work. I mean, I can read it, but I cannot feel related with it, because our society is quite different from what they're writing. Like, most of those are like very violent, those
Yes,
stories, and they have like very intense poverty, intense violence, intense
Yes.
depression, hopelessness. Those kind of things are not very common in our, at least in our Indian culture, and I guess that is same for the global South also. So, Joshodhara ma'am, do you want to add something?
No, I don't want to add because I don't have that much of deep knowledge about Afrofuturism. But here also, I think some geopolitical forces are working, and I think some of the countries they may be writing in English directly, and that is the problem we were talking earlier, that our literature has to be translated first and then only it can be appreciated by a bigger audience. So I think it's the same with Persian books. I would be waiting eagerly for translation of your two books, which you said were your most favorite. and you're one of the best works. I really want it to be translated into English.
Thank you.
So
But
that's
I'm actually translating even to English. Even if I want to translate it myself, it's very time consuming. It's very
yes,
expensive
Yes, yes.
to use, and I need to find like a good English language publisher. And it's not just that. I don't see that kind of curiosity in the publishing market right now about like Iranian science fiction, about Iran, about Persian language. You do see some kind of curiosity in like universities and in schools, but not in you know. I just don't.
General consumer market.
Yeah, it's I think we still have to wait and see if that time comes.
true.
Otherwise, it's just, I did publish Rainborn, and then, well, the English sales was not what I expected. And it, there's a lot of investment, mostly time wise and like your energy wise. I mean, if I want to translate my work, I can write another book. I have so many ideas, as you see in my short stories. I have a lot more ideas that I want to write about. And honestly, I don't want to spend my time translating my own work. I prefer to spend that time learning something new, reading more things, or, writing new
Yes.
things instead of repeating myself. That is also a valuable thing to do, but not my priority yet. And no one's waiting for it that much. So I can wait. I can take my time in doing this. I would also like to know more about you, shifting from poetry to science fiction. I would really like to know how that happened. It must be.
I think, yeah, thanks for that question. But somewhere poetry also is a sort of leap because it's built on imagery and science fiction too. So, but I started with writing for children. As Deep already mentioned, that here in Kolkata, in Bengali literature, people still have that obsession that science fiction is for children and like something to do with science, and then it's a sort of story which just flies off without any logic. So that is the common thing. So initially I started with a small children's story about a post-apocalyptic world where people live in bubbles. So that people liked. But then I started thinking more seriously. But I would say that maybe the entire my entire writing, only maybe 20 to 30% is on speculative fiction. uh, but I think it's something which can be a lifelong journey. It can evolve later. I may later turn into, as you said, that there are things happening all over India, all over the world, which cannot be written directly. So you need some sort of metaphor, some sort of world building, just to express without getting killed or without getting attacked by
True.
people. So maybe in future I may write, I don't know, but it is a turn in my writing. I think it has come only 10 or 15 years back, and I've been writing poetry from my young days.
Yeah, Rakesh asked that can we expect any other Joha's book coming translated from Kalpabisho? Yeah, actually, Yashodhara ma'am is working on such a short story collection, and I will hope that we will see that book this year coming, maybe during October, November, or maybe earlier than that.
Yeah, we'll try to do that.
Yeah. Uh, Also, I have a question like from the Rainborn. The main character of Rainborn is Tyrant, but we have two very strong female characters, Dahlia and Lily, who actually are more capable than Tyrant, and like still they are secondary characters. So I have seen that you have been called as a feminist science fiction writer in various interview and discussions over the internet. So, why the story is not from the view of Lily or not the view of Dahlia, because they are so such interesting and strong characters, and they also have their own stories. Why did you pick Tyrad, who is kind of timid and who is not very capable person? But
Yeah.
yeah,
I was asked this question before about why did I choose a male protagonist, and why is well, the pronunciation is actually Tirad. Why is Tirad so weak? Like he has a very weak character. He develops very late in the novel. Like if you look at the character arc, he takes a long time, and he keeps denying everything. It's like um I had it, I always say it's intentionally, but people can believe this or not. But I base this character um, from very religious people that I know around me, and even though like it's not about religion, any particular religion, is about like accepting an ideology and sticking to it till the end. And even though you tell them that, just bring some doubt into your beliefs, just try to see it from a different perspective, try to understand that this may all be made up, this all might be based on things that it's not that strong rooted as you think, some kind of doubt, some kind of just some room for chance that you may not be right about this. And they're very strong-headed. They never want to admit that there's anything wrong with their beliefs, and they keep judging others for not being the same as them. And so, because the whole thing is about religion and it's all about these disciples that are living on the Savior's boat, and I wanted to show the journey of one of the characters that goes from full belief, full faith, into understanding and realizing that it could all be just constructs. It could be all for nothing. And this journey is not an easy journey. I try to keep it realistically, and that's where I maybe that there's a big lag. I mean, the story seems to take on take up more room in the beginning, but eventually at first he tries to deny everything. He sees it and then he denies it. He sees so many things around it. He tries to ignore all the signs and all the violence that he sees, the corruption that he sees. He tries to censor himself. He tries to say, well, no, whatever it takes, I'm gonna stay faithful to my religion. I'm gonna stay I'm gonna keep faith. But then everything falls off around him, and he eventually has to understand that, well, things are not what as they're presented, that they're different, they have a different root. Is the truth is not what he thought it would be, and he has to face this, and he has to understand and realize this. And yes, I needed a male character for this. I do use male and female characters. Um, because I'm a woman, I don't see that I don't make myself write from a woman's perspective all the time. That's one of the good things about writing, is that you can
be
write male
anyone.
protagonists. You can use the male voice, female voice. I chose the main character because I needed that point of view to show how someone who is a very faithful believer can lose his faith throughout this journey, and lose actually everything that he has, because he built his life. Tirad builds his life around his belief, as do so many people around this world. And this is why giving up the faith becomes so hard for such people, because if you give it up, you're giving up everything. You're giving up your character, you're giving up your ego, you're giving up all the things you invested in your whole life. And so he has to pay a very big price, a very heavy price throughout the book. And he's very reluctant to do this. And he's right to be reluctant. I want the readers to understand his point of view also, that it's really difficult to
Hmm.
let go of something that you have invested in all your life. But then again, there are good things that come about. There's love, there's Dahlia, there's Lily. There are these woman characters that, as I said, I try to make them in sync with the nature, with the natural environment, with the water. They come from the water. They seem to be, they seem to be like Dahlia is very fluid. She's like the water herself. And this kind of help comes with people who are actually seeking the truth and are letting go of the make believe truth that they're hiding inside them. So maybe that's one of the things I wanted to say. And I needed these good like these female characters in contrast to the main protagonists to show the differences and to bring up the questions and the conflicts. But the only reason that Tirad is male here because I needed a believer, and women tend to be less rigid in this sense. Whenever you find this kind of really rigid, true believer, a dogmatic character, it's more likely to be like a male character, a devotee like that. So maybe that's the reason.
Wonderfully said. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess everyone will agree to that, right? Uh,
Yes.
Tirad is actually is showing that a comparison between those devotees and those people who are trying to seek out the truth, and Tirad's just transformation from the devotee to that seeker of truth is magnificent. So yeah, I can understand. Wonderful. And there are lots of symbological things, like as you said, that water and just the nature of that girl, Dahlia. So these are wonderfully written. So we are almost out of time. It's already been 1 hour and 15 minutes. I guess that, like, if we keep talking about these things, and we will take another 1 hour. But
Endless.
I just want to uh, add some questions our audience have for us, and for those who are watching it, we are at almost end of this discussion. So please send us your questions if you have, and we'll try to answer them for the next 5 minutes. So Purva also again asked that, as Yashodhara Raychaudhuri mentioned, SF and speculative fiction can use world building tools to portray the dystopian real world that we cannot talk about in other genres. Uh, how does the panel think that this helps with portraying the voice of the marginalized or the oppressed? Uh, Yashodhara ma'am?
Yeah, it's very, very helpful tool. If we can use it properly, then we can use it to actually voice out the marginalized people's trauma and experience, isn't it? I think it's possible.
Yeah. I've been trying to do this as much as I could. If hopefully if when the short stories come out, you can see that I can explain how each of the I have a lot more like female characters in the short stories. For
Yes.
example, the short story Skinner, that's the
Yeah.
alien invasion story. You can see the marginalized. I can explain why the female character acts that way, and she in a way she symbolizes the hopeful woman of my country. I don't
Right.
know if you know about like the woman life freedom movement that we had. So in a way that it does in a way parallel the kind of hopefulness that our women have. Whatever happens to them, they find a way to find hope and to stay alive and to be active, more active than men. So I would like to know your intake on the female characters in the short stories because Rainborn, my hands were tied because of the hero's journey had to be around a male disciple. But in the short stories, you can see how, um,
Yeah, it's just the opposite, I think. You have
yeah,
very strong female characters. In Isolated, the girl is called Saye, I think.
yeah,
And
Saya. Saya means
Saye,
shadow.
in Persian, it means shadows.
Yeah,
And even in our language, in Hindi, also Saya means shadow. So it has come from the same roots, I think. So yeah, all these characters are very strong, and the girls are leading almost in that other story I'm forgetting, in a post-apocalyptic world where that's Skinner, where they start off for that unknown place,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's Skinner. Yeah,
that the girl takes the lead. Yes,
yeah,
and very hopeful, and I think many strong people are there. And the girl who in the breathing annual breathing, the girl who is
yeah.
struggling to put food in her son's mouth
Yeah,
and
yeah.
bringing.
She comes from a working class family. She's a labor. And there's a whole thing about dystopias. I mean, dystopian writing is all about class distinctions. Like when you're having a dystopian world building, you have what I do actually, I use this kind of um, class discriminations to be able to, in a way, present minorities and marginalized people. So that's the reason I love my book Death Industry the most, because that book is actually about this community, this country, that people know their death dates from the time they're born. So when you're born, you have your birth date and your death date, and according to how long someone is going to live, people are classified into different groups. Like you get different things from, you can go to college if you live up to that kind of age, you can get this kind of help if you do this, and you can see how many different marginalized groups based on life length are created. So that becomes another metaphor of how we classify people and how we make others from ourselves, and we put them into a different classification. And through doing this, we create margins and marginalized people. So yes, science fiction and mostly dystopian writing is a very strong tool that we can use to represent marginalized people of any ethnicity, any color, any gender. So yeah, I think science fiction does give us the best possible way of treating these kind of themes.
Anushtup, I know that you have been in a project about marginalized science fictions recently. Uh, do you want to like talk about it? Your experience, or what do you think about that? Hello, Anushtup, can you hear me?
I think she cannot.
Yeah,
Anushtu, are you able to hear us? Maybe some sound issues.
yeah, maybe there is some problem. Okay, just I want to add that in Bengal and also in India, there has been effort to voice out marginalized voice through science fiction. Recently, there is an anti-caste science fiction anthology
Yes.
by Bluffed Publication, and they have an anthology of science fiction where authors are coming from very marginalized communities from India, and also even one of our authors have entry in that anthology. Uh, and also, Anushtup, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, I could hear you, but I couldn't respond. Basically,
Okay,
something
okay.
wrong with the
So,
camera. Yeah.
yeah, I just wondering that you want to add something about this.
Yeah, recently I had done a translation of, I mean, there was an anthology on queer science fiction, and I did a translation for that. And what I found is that the story is somewhat very different from what we normally read, how we normally think. Obviously, that is expected to be. And quite, uh, how would I put it? It's quite a bold way of putting the thoughts and beliefs and perceptions from that angle. And it was really different and kind of, you know, opens up our minds towards perceiving the boundaries and behaviors of people. Mm,
I think some of the literature women are writing in India, like Vandana Singh, and Mimi Mondal, and maybe Sukanya Datta. They are also addressing these issues. Uh, Underprivileged people, the problems of environment, the ecological issues. So these are very recurring themes, and these are coming into the narrative.
So Purba said that this is such a brilliant way to summarizing the journey of the character. Thank you, Zoha madam. And the book name for queer science fiction is Onno Boshante Rupakhan. Uh, Nolan said that amazed you have done by bringing the author. We really found the flavor of our view. And Anirban Boshua said that the mixture of primitivism with scientific possibility mixed in Rainborn is magnificent. The destruction of persona is extremely manifestation of primitive nature of human. On other side, the act of sea and fish is absolutely scientific, futuristic possibility. And the music, we must not forget music. The whole novel is orchestrated with. So
Right.
that's also a very nice comment.
Thank you.
Uh, so well, I guess we are now almost out of time. It's 1 hour and 1.5 an hour. I just want to ask Juha one last question. That I know that you have a bookshop in Iran, right?
Yeah.
Do you still have this? Have that?
No, I had to because I came to Seattle about 6 months
Oh,
ago.
okay,
So I
yeah.
rented my bookshop too, but it's still a bookshop. It's a bookshop, but it's not speculative. It's like general like
Mhm.
fiction books. But yeah, there's a still bookshop, but yeah, my bookshop is, I had it for more than 4 years, but I had to let go of it.
Okay, okay, okay. That's a pity, because if one day I can visit Iran, then I would like to visit your bookshop. I was thinking about that,
Yeah.
but yeah.
I will
Okay,
reopen it again when I go back. So
okay, okay. That's great. So, okay, I guess that we'll end this live session for today. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Zoha. It's a wonderful session and very enlightening. And thank you, Yashodhara ma'am and Anushtup,
Thank
for
you.
being here with
Thanks to
us.
So just
Kalpavi
one
Show.
thing, I wanted to show that book once in that session. That
Yeah,
this is the
definitely.
book that has come in, and as you can see, like it's a beautiful cover, and the story is also brilliant. So
Thanks to
that's it.
Kalpavi
Yeah.
Show, we could talk to the author of the original language, which is a very, very rare opportunity. I think you made it
Right.
happen, Kalpavi Show. Big hurrah for you.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kalpavitra.
everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure. It was so nice being able to talk to you. I thank you again for everything you've done. Deep, I mean, you've done a lot. Anushtup, it's just so wonderful. I'm so happy that you've done this great job. It's so lovely to talk to you, Yashodhara Mom, as you
thank you.
say. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been a total pleasure. Thanks.
Okay, then we are ending this session. Thank you, everyone.